In this video, traders, we're going to look at how we can use the RSI to jump on board trends that are already underway, and we're looking to get on the second and third wave of the move. We've got a CTrader account to do the analysis. Stay tuned. Hey guys, warm welcome to you. Right, so video sponsored by, there's a link to them in the description below, and we're using the CTrader account, access to MT4 and others as well. But I like the CTrader account. We've got a live account here, so it's exactly as you would see if you had a spread betting account open via the CTrader. So everything would be the same for you. We've got some money in it. We've been playing around with it. And this is the first time actually I've been exposed to CTrader. Stuck some money in the live account so we get the correct experience. And then we've played around with it, and I've done some other videos, guys, where I talk through little bits and pieces that I quite like CTrader. I have to admit, it's one of the platforms I've been pleasantly surprised with. Some of the extra features in there are very well thought out. I think they've probably, actually listened to traders with some of the features they've done, rather than kind of the tech guys just going, oh yeah, we need this feature and this feature, and in reality, we don't use it. But yeah, really nice platform. Definitely go and check it out. Even if you're not interested in opening an account, definitely go and check out, crack open a demo and have a look at the CTrader platform. But anyway, this is where we are now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this RSI. Now the RSI, if you're familiar with it, relative strength index, generally considered an oscillator. Selling over bought conditions, buying over sold conditions. If a range bound environment, it's a lovely indicator, lovely tool. You wait for the overbought, wait for a kind of fake out to the upside, pulls back in, selling it back to a midpoint. Broadly speaking, it's not a bad strategy. Trending environment, it sucks a bit. It doesn't really work, because if you start selling an overbought condition, you're gonna get run over, you're gonna run over. However, we can use the power of the trend, combine it with the power of the oscillator, and get what I think is a nice strategy. And it's something that you can use it on stochastic as well if you like, but it's something that is useful as a kind of, hey, listen, this could be a good place to get on board. It's not a foolproof thing, nothing is. You've got to manage your risk, got to do all the things, got to understand the risk involved in the deal, in the trade, what you're trading, all that other good stuff. But it's not a bad place for you to go, right, hey, this might well be the spring stretched, it's unwound, maybe chance to do some business, maybe an area to look a little bit deeper. So yeah, take away one or two things, guys, if you find this useful. Right, so we're in the CTrader platform. So in the CTrader platform, I've got up here just a Dow. We'll put up some other bits and pieces, try on some other things. Just a Dow chart here, and it's a spread bet version here. And I'm after hours. So the Dow's not particularly open yet, even though they do offer trading at a slightly wider spread during the after hours session. Okay, so I'm going to right click on here. There's other ways of doing it, but this is kind of the way that we'll do it for now. Go into the oscillator section of indicators, and we're going to put relative strength index. Now in here, I'm going to leave it at a 14 period default setting. My main line green, that's fine. But what I want to add is some levels. So I want to add an overbought and oversold level. I'm going to thicken these up a little bit. I just prefer to have them a little bit thicker, a little bit more visible. But what I am going to do is I'm going to add a 50 level at 50, which is the midpoint between the two, so the kind of midpoint, and we're going to make that red, and I might thicken up just a touch as well. Hit OK, and there we go. Right, so we've got the RSI here, and kind of in the indicator pane below, and really the rules are this, guys. We're looking for, number one, the stretch spring. So the stretch spring is going to indicate an overbought condition. Then we want to look for the spring to have contracted, or the rubber band, if you want to look at it like that, to contracted. That's going to be back to the mean. That's why we did the 50 line at the midpoint. And that's going to give us the potential to get into the trade. So on this example, let's look at a few examples as well. And by the way, we're just looking at kind of ones they've got here. If you're interested, better go back, and I would suggest going back and looking at sort of previous signals you've got and adjusting and tweaking, and then you can look at your risk management, your entry, your exit criteria. This is a broad way of looking at things. So your first overbought condition on the Dow here, we've got an overbought condition, we've gone over 70, and it's around this time here. Fine, that's just the precursor for the entry. It's not the trigger to get in, it's not the anything else, but to say, hey, we've moved pretty good and we're now overbought. Now I would recommend, I mean, you can add these filters, and I'm not going to go too deep into these extra things you can add to it, but I definitely recommend adding things like, fresh multi-week highs, good move off lows, above moving averages, other things like that, just so you're not getting a kind of overbought signal just coming off a low print and it's been stagnating and it's not that good. You want strength basically. So however you want to add things to define strength, you know, add that. So strength, overbought condition on RSI, stochastic as well, but let's use RSI for the example. Then the first time we go back to the mean, the 50 we put in earlier, that's when we're looking to get involved with the trade from the long side. And a little trick, guys, that I like to do is to not get it on the kiss of the mean as it comes back to 50, but to get it as it comes back up through it. So if the market comes down here, let's say we've gone here, we've gone through it. So we're not getting involved in this day, we're getting involved on the next day as the market comes back up through the 50. And again, tweak it, adjust it, manage your risk as you see fit. But this then gets you in on a kind of spring unwinding pullback here. And, you know, however you want to manage that. If you want to manage it and say, right, I'm going to take a 3-day move off the trade, fine. Then you're good for whatever that is, a kind of 200 or 300, 400 points. If you want to have it a revisit to highs, which is probably my personal preference, then you've got to, on this particular example, you've got to kind of wait to sit through it, but eventually it comes back up and it's tagged that prior high, which is, you know, a decent move, whatever that is in pips. Look at just eyeballing it, move 500 pips or so. So that's the premise of the trade. Let's look at another example, because I like to include all examples, guys. This isn't the cherry-picked, great, perfect example, because it's not that great. You've got to kind of sit through a lot of pain here. Maybe if you had just stopped tight, you might have been pinged out on half here. You might have been able to take half off at 300 pips and then taken out on the other half. Who knows? It's not the perfect example, but the market never gives you the perfect example. But you can see it guides you on the pullback and says, hey, you know what? It's a pretty decent pullback here. Might be worth getting involved in. All right, so I'm going to now put up, let's put up a metal here, and I've cut you off a little bit on the side just so I can fit you all on the screen. So the good thing about, I've covered this before, guys, you can trade some of the metals like gold and silver against different currencies. I'm going to use USD because that's the standard one right now, but if you want to strip off USD and do gold versus pound, gold versus euro, you can do, and I kind of talked about benefits of that in a previous video, so go and check that out if you're interested. But that's quite a nice feature. Many other brokers don't. All right, so gold, same kind of thing. We've got multi kind of month breakouts here, and we get to an overbought condition. Great, overbought. Now we just wait. We're waiting to see when we go back to that 50 zone on the RSI. And again, we can zoom in if we want to do it here. Bang, we come back here. This is just triggered as we come on the 49.37. The next day we come over, and we can kind of make this a bit clearer here. This is the next day, guys, that we come over. Bang, on this day, right, we're in here, and so far so good. Who knows where this trade is going to end? I mean, you know, if you're taking scaling out into the trade, you're doing fine. If it's a new highs or nothing, who knows where this trade could go. But again, it lines you up quite nicely with the pullback, and the good thing is, guys, is that, you know, if it does keep going lower, so let's say, for example, it just keeps going lower and lower and lower. Well, the RSI is going to do the same. The RSI is going to go lower and lower and lower. And again, this is where you got to filter yourself and say, if it goes to oversold, I won't take it. That's maybe a different trade setup, granted, but it's not that pullback drive, pullback, should I say, pause, and then drive again. It's a different type of setup. So you might say, right, if the market keeps going lower and we stay under that 50 for kind of 4 days in a row, say, game over. I'm not playing the trade. So you can add little things like this to tweak and adjust it. Let's look at maybe one more here that perhaps triggered off. What else have I got here for you? Just look at my notes and see if there's anything that we had. We had AUD-JPY, but it didn't quite trigger. So this is a great example, guys, of, you know, didn't quite trigger, so you don't take it. Even though hindsight, you could say it was a winning trade, so what? It doesn't trigger, it is what it is, plenty that will. So we've got here, look, we've got, and you might say, okay, maybe we're not multi-thing highs, you might, for whatever reason, not taking it, but whatever. Let's assume that you've got the trigger, you've got an overbought condition here, great, that's fired off, comes back down, you're waiting for the oversold, and unfortunately, let's just get the tooltip up, doesn't quite trigger. 51.56 is where it went to, and that was about here, right at the low. Didn't quite trigger, guys, came back up. It did take out the high, so it would have been good, but if it doesn't trigger, it doesn't trigger. Now, if you want to add rules that allow for close, maybe you add half of 50. You've got to be careful you're not cherry picking and tweaking too much. But the point is, it guides you. You can see if you go overbought, come back down, start to loiter around that mean area, and then push off it. That's why it's important to wait for the curl under and push back up, then see momentum curl back up. It's not a bad way to guide you. Something to use on a daily chart. You have to let me know in the comment section below how you get on, if you've had a look at it on an hourly, a 15-minute, or even a shorter time frame. But looking on a daily, it's quite nice. Something I like to use to guide me. Wait for that spring to unwind a bit. Wait for it to stretch. Yes, triggers. We've got all these alerts, should I say? Overbought. Compresses down a little bit. And the assumption is it's going to go again. Do we know it's going to go again? No, that's why we have risk management, that's why we have stops in place, but not a bad way to kind of look at trades. All right, guys, if you want to check them out, there is a link in the description below. Multi-regulated, different types of accounts, all other good stuff. Well worth checking out if you're in the market for another broker, if your broker's not been performing, if you don't like the platform, or you want a backup broker for when things go pear-shaped, which occasionally they do, brokers go down, it is what it is, you've got a backup to move on. Or if you want to just check out the CTrader platform, like I say, link in the description below, go and check them out at your leisure. Anyway, that's the RSI pullback type setup. Take care, see you next one, bye-bye.